Hi everyone, welcome to the fifth online lecture by global experts on care economy. Today we have a special invitee, our colleague Kam Chandvasyuk, who is the Capacity Development Specialist in the Training Center and responsible for this course, will share with us the information on the conclusions of the second edition of the Men Engaged Global Symposium, which recently took place in Delhi, as they relate to care. Just a brief on the Men Engaged. The Men Engaged is an alliance to fight gender inequality with the participation of both sexes, to assert their equal identity, and emanated from the gang rape that took place 2 years ago in Delhi, and this is the second edition. So Kam, the word is you. Once Kam is finished, I will introduce our speaker of today. Thank you.
Hi. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Kam, and it's nice to meet you here. You have met me through emails. So as Clemencia said, today I would like to share some of the issues coming out from the global symposiums on engaging men and boys that happened more than a week ago in New Delhi. This is the second time. The first time was in Brazil 5 years ago. And my presentation is only information sharing, and it's really based on a paper written by Dr. Gary Barker, the director of Promundo, and also he's also the co-chair of the Men Engaged Network. Basically, care and care economy and caregiving. Now, come from the global symposium, there has been a call, a global call to have one goal or one indicator in the newly developed sustainable development goal, or the post 2015 goals, to have one indicator of men and boys doing 50% of the world's unpaid care work. And this is a very ambitious indicator that the Men Engaged Network is negotiating and advocating at the global level, so that in 2015, next year, when governments are negotiating for these sustainable development goals, they are advocating for this indicator to be in there to make sure that the issue of men involvement in care is taken upon at the global level. At the meeting, there was a very strong feeling amongst women's movement, and is also the Men Engaged Network members and also researchers and all participants, that the work, the care work is still lagging behind compared to other issues since Beijing 1994. So people are calling for this issue to be pushed forward. So in terms of the politics of men in caregiving should be
Cam, excuse me, I'm afraid I think we cannot hear you. I think it's not only me. I would ask Leslie and Dejan, can you help me? Can you hear Cam?
No. So Cam, could you please, we'll just turn off your webcam and then your web camera, and then from the last couple of minutes that you've been speaking, just redo what you've said, because we haven't been able to hear you. Cam, can you hear us?
Cam? I'm afraid Cam cannot hear us. We must have had some problem with the internet connection. So welcome everyone to this 5th session. I will take on the lecture while we wait for Cam, while we wait for him. So today, hopefully, we will have Cam again, keeping on discussing on the main topics that have been dealt with during the Men Engaged Global Symposium, the topics related to care. So hopefully we will have Cam back, and then you will have some time to ask him questions. And then we will go on to the main topic of the session, which is care as part of the economy. While we wait for Cam, I just wanted to resume the ways of interaction during the webinar. Well, I will try also to share my webcam. That was an innovation that we tried to introduce today. I don't know whether you can see me. Hopefully you can. So you can see that there is a real person behind the voice. So the first way of interacting today will be, as always, typing your questions. You already know how to do that. And the second way will be making oral questions, voice questions, and for that you have to raise your hand. We tried to do that during the last session, and we only had one person, I think it was Piet, speaking aloud, but hopefully you will want to do that today, more of you. And a third way that we will try to introduce today is the polls, which are like very short polls, very short questions, just for you to feel that you are there and that there are other people also attending the webinar, that you are not talking to a robot or to a machine. And let's do a first warm-up poll. I'm going to ask you whether you have ever reflected on the relationship between care and masculinities. And for you to know how the poll works, let's see if I can do it. I need to launch the poll, and it will appear in your screen. Yeah, it's on your screen. And you need to click on the yes or on the no, upon whether you have reflected on that relationship, and then we can see the results. I think Cam has problems. So can you please, all of you, 57% of attendees have voted. We can wait a few seconds for the rest of you to vote. Is anyone else of you wanted to vote? Yes, 71% has voted. This is a simple question. This is not an exam, so don't be afraid. Just tell us what you think. Well, it's okay. So now we can close the poll and we can share the results. Let's see. Yeah, all of you who have answered have reflected on this relationship between care and masculinity. So hopefully we will have Cam back with us so he can keep us telling the news on what has been discussed on that topic, and then you can make him some questions. But please let me 1 minute so I can try to contact Cam. Cam, are you there? You cannot hear me. And I don't know. We should have included a poll on whether you can see me. You can see my webcam. I'm not sure about that, but just in case, I keep on there. Okay, so I will have. Okay. So we come back to the presentation, and let's see whether we can hear Cam. Cam, can you talk to us? I think we have problems with Cam. Maybe you can restart your computer and then I go on with the lecture and then we come back to you and to masculinities. I think that might be the best way. So we have had this warm-up poll. Now I will finish sharing my webcam, so just in case we don't have any other internet connection problem. So I stop sharing it, and while we wait for Cam, we can just go on with the main topic of the session, care as part of the economy, and we have a second poll. What do you think? Have we already discussed on the economic role of care during the course? Do you think that we have already done it? What do you think? Just 1/3 of you voted, almost half of you have voted, more than half of you, 7 out of 10, okay. So probably we have some attendees that don't know how to vote or that are not engaged right now. Okay, let's close the poll and share the results. All of you consider that we have already talked about care as part of the economic role of care, but most of you consider that we have done it too briefly. And in fact, we have done it too briefly for a course that is entitled the care economy. So this is why we decided to focus this session which is located in week 5. We decided to talk again about the care economy, which was the topic of the previous week's session. But we decided to focus on it again because of that, because we have talked about the economic role of care, but we have done it too briefly, and this is a key issue for the course. So please let me one moment see. Yeah, okay. So what have we said up to now? First of all, we have related care and the monetized economy. We have had Francisco Cos Montiel affirming during his first lecture that the whole economic system is based on care, and that in order to produce, we must first be biologically and socially reproduced. So in this sense, the care economy is the base of market economy. Then Shara Razavi asked whether economic development determines policy responsiveness for care needs. And she argued that policy responsiveness to care requires public resources because, in fact, we need resources to finance care services, and we need resources to implement enough infrastructure that can make easier the work of the preconditions for care, but that there are variations even across countries with roughly similar income levels. So that income levels do not determine policy responsiveness. Let's say it other way, that the relationship between income levels or economic development and care and the social organization of care and social co-responsibility for care is much more complicated than that. So, in fact, care is economics, and Valeria Esquivel has argued that unpaid care work is a crucial dimension of well-being for those who benefit from the care received, but also is a cost for those who provide care. So, if we understand that the economy comprises all those work processes that serve to meet people's needs, care is in fact economics. Care is in fact part of the economic system, because it is a need to be satisfied, and it is also a work to be done. Therefore, an economic approach to care is critical, but it does not provide the whole picture. We need also other approaches to care. And here we had Janine Anderson's session when she talked about the philosophy or culture of care, and she argued that each society can be said to have its own overall philosophy or culture of care. So, care is the base of market economy, care is itself economics, because it is a work and it is a dimension of well-being. We need an economic approach to care, but this is not sufficient. This is not the whole picture. We need to complement an economic approach to care with other perspectives on care. So the first thing when trying to make an economic approach to care, when trying to understand the care economy, is to go beyond the usual notion of the economic system that we tend to use. This usual, what we could call the economistic approach to care, understands that in the care system there are only two agents. On the one hand, companies that produce goods and services, that sell those goods and services to households who can afford those goods and services, those commodities, by paying prices with the wages that they get through selling companies their workforce. In this picture, all what people is considered to need are goods and services. I mean, that through market consumption, people is assumed to reach well-being, and that there is no other economic process considered in this picture. So the only economic activity is the one that happens in the production sphere, in markets, and through companies' activities. And people living conditions, let's say, fully and completely depend on companies' activities. The work of the care economy starts from trying to unveil what happens within household, how those goods and services, how those wages are transformed into fed, health, and healthy people, and clean people, let's say. So what happens within household? How do goods and services transform into well-being, into embodied well-being? And with that, we try to broaden the notion of the economy. We try to put in the picture all this invisible base of the economic system that Francisco was telling us about. So from a broadened perspective of the economy, we consider that the economic system is comprised of two different spheres. From the horizontal line that hopefully you are seeing upwards, we have the production and distribution of commodities. We have what we could shortly term the production sphere, the market sphere. And from the horizontal line downwards, we have the space of human development or the space of social reproduction. In the space of production, we have production through companies who must make a profit in order to undergo their activities. From there, they pay wages to households, and with those wages, households can afford to buy some goods and services that are part of their well-being. So there are some basic standards of living that are produced through those goods and services that households purchase in the market. But there are many other things that go on so that this is converted, this become people, let's say. And this is done through unpaid work. So unpaid work has three main functions, we say. First of all, broadening those basic standards of living. All commodities that come from markets need a process, almost all, let's say, needs a process of transformation and of adaptation to the concrete needs of different people. So there's an enormous amount of work done to transform and to adapt and to maintain market commodities, market goods and services. But also, within household, there are a lot of goods and services that are also produced, which are non-market goods and services. So let's say this is the quantitative character of unpaid work that devotes a lot of time to transform, maintain, and adapt market goods and services and to produce additional goods and services. But beyond that, unpaid work has a, let's say, a qualitative function which is called the expansion of well-being. And this, we can try to understand it in a double sense. First of all, that someone has to have the responsibility to fit together all the diverse pieces, all the diverse goods and services, all the diverse economic processes, fit and be sure, guarantee that they fit together so as to reproduce life. so that they do not go scattered, but they group together and they are transformed into concrete well-being for concrete people. So this is something like trying to resolve a jigsaw puzzle. And this responsibility is not located in markets but in households. And a second qualitative function of unpaid work would be to answer to the emotional dimension of well-being and to ensure that all those, let's say, material works try to resolve the needs of concrete people with different and specific, singular, peculiar needs and desires. So the response to this emotional dimension of well-being is also done within households. And this is the two main functions of unpaid work within households that serve to produce well-being, to reproduce socially and biologically reproduce people. And from all those people, there are just a few of them that come back to the market, that enter the market as labor force. So the selection of those peoples and guaranteeing that those peoples are healthy, are fed, and are able to enter the labor market, and that when they go out from the labor market, they go somewhere to reproduce daily their well-being and their energies, this is also the function of unpaid care work. So this is the three-folded, the tripartite responsibility of unpaid care work within households. And without understanding all these economic processes, we cannot understand how the whole economic system works. So this is I would argue that this is the view that we need to with which we need to approach the economic system. But let's say, what do you think? What do you think about this expanded approach to the economic system? Do you think that it is interesting, that it is problematic, that you would need to know more about it in order to answer, or do you think any other thing? So let's go with our third poll today. What do you think? You can also say, we haven't understood you anything. Let's wait. 57. Yeah, you have. Almost all of you have voted. So half of you say that it is interesting. 17% of you say that it is problematic, and 1/3 of you say that you would need to know more about this. For those who need to know more about this, I would suggest, of course, reading the reading paper number 4, and also all the additional readings on the care economy that are suggested within this reading paper, and also in the complementary bibliography. But hopefully I will end talking in a few minutes, and we can then discuss it through this way, this session, but also in the forum. I remember that forum discussion number 4 is precisely about this topic. So let's come back to the presentation. So if we accept that we are going to approach the economy from this broadened perspective, from a care perspective, let's say, we need to review how we approach the macro level, the meso level, and the micro level. And I will try just to make a very brief suggestions on how we need to review those levels because we don't have much time to discuss it deeply. So first of all, about macroeconomics. Trying to understand macroeconomics from a care-sensitive perspective, let's say, would be trying to understand the interaction between the monetized and the non-monetized economic spheres. Trying to understand that the whole economic system, the whole process of creating well-being and satisfying needs involves 3 main economic actors: companies, the state, so let's say the private sector and the public sector, but also households. So trying to unveil all this invisible work. And this is the cover of the Human Development Report 1995, which was the first time when unpaid care work was measured at a global level. If you can see, the red and green parts of this picture from the horizontal line upwards are those who correspond to the production sphere, and from the horizontal line downwards, this is work outside the market. The red part is the work performed by women, and the green one is the work performed by men at a global level, let's say. So as you can see, there's a bit more work done outside the market than within the market, and women perform a bit more than half of the total workload of the work. But the main question from a macroeconomic perspective is trying to understand the relationship between paid work done in markets mostly by men and unpaid care work done mostly by women outside from markets. And we say that this relationship refers to the distributive conflict between production and reproduction. We say that from the perspective of reproduction, of social reproduction, not biological only, but social reproduction, living conditions are the ultimate purpose of the economy. So production is just a means to reproduction, to living conditions. But for production, living conditions can become an adjustment variable that facilitates profitable productive system. Let's say it other way. Social reproduction is a cost for the production process. So the main question at a macroeconomic level will be trying to understand what is the priority of the economic system, whether living conditions is the main priority or living conditions is an adjustment variable. So we say that when care acts as an adjustment variable, the consequent economic system is in the shape of an iceberg. Reproduction is concealed and becomes the invisible base on which development is grounded. So we have an economic system that looks in a way like that. In the visible part, we have the space of commodity production, which is led by profit motive, and where what we call the self-sufficient worker, those workers that do not have any care needs and do not have any care responsibilities but are fully prepared and fully adaptable to the needs of the production process, where all those occur. And in the invisible part of the economic system, we have social reproduction, we have the care economy, and we have the responsibility for sustaining life, for, let's say, making that all pieces of economic pieces fit together and create well-being. From a mesoeconomic perspective, we need to understand mainly four things. First, we need to understand the gender dimensions of economic institutions. And we say that both the welfare state and the labor market tend to assume that there is an infinitely elastic cushion of unpaid care work. For the welfare state, the main place where we can argue that are the low levels of defamiliarization that we have been talking about during the last sessions. And for labor market, precisely what I just recently said, that the labor market asks workers to act as if they had no care responsibilities that might interfere with or condition their participation on the workforce. So all the care policies that try to adapt labor market conditions to the care needs and responsibilities of workers would be a way of making a more gender-friendly labor market. So second, looking at mesoeconomics from a care and gender-sensitive perspective would mean trying to understand the gender dimensions of economic institutions in the sense that there are numerous forms of labor market discrimination on the basis of sex that are deeply linked to the unfair distribution of care tasks. In the reading paper you have this point much more developed. I just brought here a few examples. Workplace discrimination can happen both in access to work and in keeping jobs as well as in job loss. In access to work, an example of discrimination, of frequent discrimination, refers to the fact that women have a greater presence in the informal economy, and particularly in the most vulnerable sectors of the informal economy. How this relates to care? Women being the only ones or the principal ones responsible for care may mean that they seek jobs that are compatible with this responsibility, even though these jobs may have worse labor conditions and informal employment frequently can be more flexible to those responsibilities. So this is a key factor keeping women in informal jobs. During their presence in the labor market, women face both horizontal segregation, which is related to the fact that women find more employment in the care sector, which tend to have poorer labor conditions. Women also face difficulties for career promotion, what we call vertical segregation, which is linked to the fact that their responsibilities for care may inhibit their professional promotion, and all this has as a consequence the coexistence of diverse phenomena, what we call the glass ceiling, what we call the sticky floor, and the related gender pay gap. And in job loss, we could talk about the dismissals based on sex. A very frequent one is the dismissal based on pregnancy. So pregnancy is often a cause for dismissal, and frequently there is no legal protection for that situation, or this protection is not upheld. So sometimes, lots of times we have legal protection, let's say, but this is not implemented. And third, looking at mesoeconomics, and let's go to, I think it's our final poll. Do you think that economic policies are gender neutral? What do you think? Yeah, let's wait a few seconds. Let's see whether the last person can vote. Okay, let's close the poll. 20% of you said that some of them are gender neutral and other policies are not gender neutral, but most of them consider that economic policies are not gender neutral. Well, in fact, we don't have enough time to argue that point with sufficiently, let's say, but just to come back to the main arguments by feminist economics that all of the previous presenters mentioned. We never can say, there is not a single economic policy that can be said to be gender neutral. What economic policies tend to be are gender blind. So all of them are related to the gender relationship, to a certain system of gender relationships and impact upon those gender relations. But we could say also the same thing about the care economy. So there is a permanent interrelationship between economic policies and the care economy, and we need to understand that interrelationship, the impacts of economic policies upon the care economy. I just brought here one example, the example of fiscal policies. Fiscal policies can impact directly into the care economy, both through spending and through revenue. This is through spending. This is the most obvious way of affecting or of impacting in the care economy. First of all, by providing or not providing care services. So this would be a first obvious way of impacting the social organization of care. A second way of impacting would be through the quality of employment, both of employment in those care services. When employment in the care services presents good conditions, the quality of the care services that are provided will also be good. But when labor conditions are poor, the quality of the care services will be also poor. But beyond that, through their impact on the quality of public employment, of the employment of all public servants, they also impact the care economy because it is directly linked to the existence or non-existence of what we could say reconciliation rights or work-family balances measures. And third, many public services use unpaid work, although in a non-declared way. So we should also ask what is the amount of unpaid work that is used in order for public services to function. Fiscal policies can also directly impact the care economy through revenue. Through the tax system, private care services can be encouraged. The tax regime for care services is also a key issue, and also through the tax system, particular family models can be favored. The main critic here has been the favoring of the traditional family of the man who enters the labor market and the woman who stays at home taking care of the family. And this has been encouraged through the tax system. If you want, we can talk about that later. But also fiscal policies can indirectly impact on the care economy through diverse ways, among them through recreating what we call the commodification bias that occurs when we enter in a process of privatizing public services. But I will not stop here because I think we're quite late and you already have it in the reading paper. So in fact, we can find more direct or indirect ways of impacting the care economy. Some of them are more obvious, some of them are less obvious, but we always have to look for them. And in the fourth place, we have to look at the mesoeconomics, trying to understand how households function, because households are those economic units in charge of closing the economic system. It is not only that households are not only consumers but also producers. It is a fact that it is in households that this tripartite responsibility of broadening and expanding well-being and of reducing the working population tends to be carried out. So households assume their responsibility for making it all fit together, let's say. So because it is there where various resources and economic processes are ultimately transformed into the specific well-being of persons. So it is through unpaid work that household function as the final element of readjustment in the economic system. We need to understand households not only as economic units, but as critical features of the economic systems, and not only of care systems. And looking at the economy from this gender and care sensitive perspective, we need to, let's say, open the black box of households. Frequently, economistic perspectives assume the household as harmonious units where everything is shared, let's say. What we say is that households are the arena both of cooperation and of conflict, and that we need to understand this cooperative conflict that happens within households. So gender roles assign to women the ultimate responsibility for the well-being of households, even when this is at the expense of their own well-being. So therefore, they are asked to assume the ultimate responsibility for adjusting the economic system. This is a general argument that we make, but we need to understand how this works precisely in diverse contexts and in diverse households. We need to, I will repeat it, we need to open the black box of households. And just to finish, I would like to wrap up some main ideas. First, that in order to better understand the economic role of care, we need to think of it from an economic perspective which differs from the usual perspective. We need to look not only at the market but at all the processes that generate resources for the sustainability of life, and we need to ask whether the economic performance is satisfactory or not, making this question upon whether the economic system sustains and cares for life or not. It is especially important to finish this session identifying the two main tensions in the economic system. On the one hand, that families are not a harmonious unit, but an arena for cooperative conflict, as I was just saying, and on the other hand, that it is clear that in the monetized spheres of the economy, the creation of well-being might not be a direct objective, but because when the direct objective is the individual obtaining of monetary profit. And this is a tension that we need to face and to recognize. Care is always present in any development model and in any economic system. The question is what priority it is granted. Too often, in the models that we might call misdevelopment, they are the foundation that remains hidden, as in the kind of economic system shaped as an iceberg that I was talking about. The key to good development would be to advance towards systems that place care in the center, which recognize care as a primordial element in life processes, and therefore take it upon themselves to make care as a public responsibility and then redistribute it. And I will finish here, but before opening the question and answer session, hopefully we can come back to CAM, and then we can make the question and answer session on both things, so care as part of the economy and on the results of the masculinity symposium. CAM, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me? Can you signal that you can hear me?
We can hear you perfectly. Great, you are there.
Okay, thank you. I'm so sorry for the technological challenge because I think I'm having some issue with my laptop and also the internet connection because I'm away from my desk. Anyway, thank you, and I'm sorry for that. Let's get back quickly. So I was saying that at the symposium there was discussions, presentations about the International Men and Gender Equality Survey, or what it is called IMAGE. The IMAGE, or this survey, found that younger men with some year of secondary education and men living in urban setting are more likely to be receptive to the notions of gender equality. This means that this is an opening opportunity for us to working with men on gender equality, including care giving at home. The IMAGE data also found that half of men who are fathers report that they spend some time with their children, caring for their children, but it's still far less than women. And this is not new. We have been discussing about this in our course. Just quickly, for an example, in Brazil, from 2001 to 2011, women's unpaid care went from 24 to 22 hours per week. Only 2 hours reduction. But for men, there is an increase from 10 hours to 10 hours and 8 minutes over the last 10 years. So it means that women do less care work, only 2 hours per week over the last 10 years. On the other hand, men only involve 8 more minutes in their household for the last 10 years. So we have a lot of things to do. And globally, there's no country in the world that has achieved this parity in caregiving. So why the division of care work matters between men and women? Why it is important? It's because men's lacking participation in care work serves to keep women's wages lower than men, which in turn is translated into less participation and power inequalities in social and political spheres. It's also, from the study, it's also shown that these men's inactive, men passive participation in care work shape gender regimes, system of child rearing, circle of violence, and circle of poverty. Research also showed that children in households with more equitable participation of men show better health and development. Women raised in households with more equitable fathers show lower rates of experiencing unwanted sex. Men who report stronger connection to their children tend to contribute more to their income to the household. Data from Sweden, a very progressive country in terms of caregiving, show that households where men share the care work show higher income for women and for the household overall. Women report better life, sexual and relationship satisfaction when male partners are more involved in care work. Women whose partners are more involved in prenatal visits and in childbirth report calmer, more secure childbirth experience. The benefits to men themselves are very clear as well. Men who report stronger connection with their children show better health and mental health, lower rates of substance abuse, and lower rates of incarceration. The study, this IMAGE study, also showed that there is an intergenerational effect of men's participation in caregiving. Men who saw their own fathers or the other men in the household carrying out caregiving and demonstrate gender equality were more likely to carry care work and have equitable attitudes as adults. Caregiving by men is a gender equality dividend that pays forward in multiple ways. So basically, men participating in care work benefits children, benefit women, and benefit men themselves. And also caregiving is about empathy, responsibility, and emotional connection in daily practice. To be disconnected from caregiving is to plant the seeds for emotional indifference boys and men who see caregiving as secondary feminine. It also serves the purpose of creating manhood as superior than women. It also feeds into the view that care work is not important, and the whole emotional connections, the whole meaningful connection among family members to care for each other, it's seen as not important for men, and this legitimizes men's privilege and manpower, and this allows men to feel more entitled in terms of their privilege and power. Now, when we are talking about this survey, and they also interview men who
Again, we lost Cam? Or is it just me? Leslie, Dejan, can any of you confirm that to me? Okay. Okay, so Cam audio disappear. If it doesn't come back in the next couple of minutes, I would suggest going into the questions. So I would encourage you to make any question both to Cam, that hopefully is hearing us although we cannot hear him, and also to type your... Yeah, Matilde says that she doesn't hear him. Thanks for your contribution. Okay, so while we wait for Cam, I suggest you to make any questions in case you have any. You know that you can type your question or that you can raise your hand and we will listen to you. So is there any question both on those kind of economic issues or on care and masculinities? Other times I have questions prepared just in case that you don't want to ask anything, but this time I cannot ask anything to myself. So, so does any of you want to make any question? I mean, making questions also mean discussing any of the points that I might have raised. Sharing your doubts, your knowledge, your opinions. Yeah, there is a question by Elise. Okay, so Elise is trying to ask Cam. The problem is that I'm not sure whether Cam is listening to us.
Hello, I'm here, I'm back.
Hello.
I'm very sorry,
Hello.
I'm very sorry. So let me make it fast then.
Perfect.
Okay. So basically, the study showed that the men who are involved in care work, mainly they do that because of life circumstances. It's not because of their willingness, according to the study. Nearly all of the men said that they took this caregiving role because of external forces, not because of their own belief in gender equality. but then interestingly, so the practice of doing care work over a period of time allow men to be more gender equitable attitudes. So men do not enter into the care work necessarily because of their willingness, but after doing the care work, it allows them to connect more to the notions of gender equitable practices at home. So in summary, they said that it made their life richer and more fulfilled, and to be more connected with their own family. On the other hand, the negative side of this is that they feel that they are isolated from their caregiving practices, because caregiving is still seen as a woman's job, and men who are part of these processes of providing care is seen as less of a man. So there is a notion of losing their masculinity in participating in caregiving in a more traditional patriarchal systems or society. So in conclusion, we can say that the social network do not value care work, whether carried out by women or by men, in fact. So there are still a lot of work to change that social norms, that care work is not stigmatized, either carried out by men or carried out by women. The gender division of caregiving is so historically and culturally ingrained in our institutions. The work with media and campaign, it's not sufficient for sure, because it's an institutional issue. We need, it's a social norms issue. We need revolutions, that's what they said. We need to make the whole notions of men participating in care work has to be part of this movement of paradigm shift to create new men, the more peaceful, more non-violent, more gender equitable men who can be part of this the more gender equitable ways of life at homes, in the society, and at the institutional level. And this can only be achieved through policies reform, workplace policies reform, institutional and community reform. It has to go beyond the small, simple community or communication campaign. It has to be reconnected with other issues, for example, violence, prevention of violence against women, the promote of sexual and reproductive health and rights, and economic empowerment and the political participation. So my last point is based on this study. They are calling for some recommendation, for example, for more equal and transferable and paid parental leave, for state workplace supported child care and family care, national policy to increase men's participation in reproductive and sexual health. For example, men's participation in contraceptive use or condom use. Making caregiving part of the school curriculum for boys and girls, so we start at a very early age. Equality of support and governmental benefits should be extended to all care arrangements, including same-sex parents and adoption of children by LGBTI individuals. Often, the issue with flexible work time and work-life balance, and also income support policy that encourage men participation in family life as caregivers. So, caregiving by men, it cannot be done simply, and it cannot be simply measured by men's time use and something to make men feel better. That is something that men have to do because this is part of men's life. It has to, the macro and micro level structures have to be transformed so that men are allowed to provide and to participate positively. And then we a caring society. So these are the discussions that are coming out from the global symposiums, and many civil society organizations are continuing to advocate for an indicator on men's engaging in caregiving in the next SDG in 2015. So I can end from here.
Okay, Cam, thanks a lot. We have a couple of questions for you. One of them by Elise. Elise, I will try to unmute your microphone so we can hear you. Let's see.
Hello, can you hear me?
Hey, yeah, hello.
Perfect. Okay, my question goes to Cam. Thank you first of all for sharing your information. And my question is, you've already partly answered this. It's related to what kind of policy reform is necessary to engage more men in caregiving and to foster co-responsibility. You mentioned the SDGs, but are there any other policy reforms on the UN level that should be done, can be done, or are helpful for fostering more co-responsibility? Hello?
Hi, Alice. I hope you are well. Thank you for your question. So I think, you know, at the policy level, I'm not sure how much the UN has been doing to promote policy reforms to foster men's engagement in caregiving. But for the next SDG, if it is going to be one of the indicators in the next sustainable development goals, then there would be a negotiations with the government of what policies that would be acceptable by all countries for reform so that men can be involved. For example, what I was saying before, that you know, the paid paternity leave, parental leave, that some are available in some countries, and in other countries, in the majority, they are not available. Or you know, even the men's in terms of sexual reproductive health work, if the men the increase of men's involvement in contraceptive use, for example, condom use and women's contraceptive use, the child care and family care supports provided by workplace, provided by institutions. So there are more areas that policies can be reformed in terms of labor policies and also family policies. Now, how much we can do, I don't think I can answer that because that's not my field. But I also think that on week 7, Amaya will be discussing about these policy changes that can promote rights to care including men's participations in caregiving.
Thank you, Cam. We have, well, Elisa says thank you. We have another question by Matilde, and as long as we don't have any other, I think that will be the last one because we are already a bit late. So Matilde is asking, she says, if I understood you well, you mentioned that in the last symposium, this last symposium, Voices pointed out that this dimension, working with men, has not been developed enough in gender equality work. How can it be explained from your point of view? Can we talk about resistances from some women movements? Thank you. Cam?
Yes, thank you, Matilde, for the question. I don't think I was saying that there was not enough development in terms of engaging men and boys. I think there has been a lot over the last decade on working with men and boys against women and empowering women. However, more and more evidence has shown that working with men and boys alone might not necessarily work. In fact, check out the Lancet website that today they launched the special edition of the Lancet on violence against women to commemorate tomorrow, the 25th of November, the International Day for Elimination of Violence Against Women. And there is an article about working with boys. Does it evidence? And we don't have enough evidence that working with men and boys alone are working effective. So the more evidence is showing that working with boys and girls at the very early stage or short period of time do not show some result. And you know, all these we have been saying all the time that it has to be multi-dimensional and multi-directional, because it has to be working at the individual level, personal level, with individual men, boys, girls, and women toward policy and institutional transform. So coming back to your question, Matilde, there has been a lot of work and research and more knowledge about working with men and boys, and it's still very proven as important in the field, and it's still proven famous. However, we don't have enough evidence of what exactly works and how that link directly to gender equality advancement. So there are also a very deep concern that the work with men and boys it's taken away from the work to promote gender equality as a whole and the women's right in advancement. It's still being discussed how the work with men and boys is still linked to the work to promote women's rights and under the leadership of women's movement. So I think that there are ongoing discussions and dialogue, and the voice is coming out from symposium that it's enough to, you know, over the last decade, let's stop arguing who's leading the work and should we do work with men and boys, should we work with women and girls, should we work separately, or how should we work together. The question is that we have to work together, there's no doubt, and the work with men and boys need to be informed by the work with women and girls, and they have to be done in connection. They cannot be done separately. I hope I can answer your question.
We have a final question come by Ayanda. She says that the question that preoccupies me more on this question is not much what could be done to engage more men in caregiving. I mean, policy reforms, programs, etc. For example, the South African-based non-governmental organization Sonke Gender Justice has pioneered most of this work, for example, in the implementation of the Fatherhood Project. My main concern, Ayanda says, is that the success of this work relies on our ability to shift attitudes and beliefs of men to take responsibility to care. What are the experiences of this in different contexts? Do you know, Ayanda? Do you know, Cam? But if this interests you that much, we might discuss this on the forum, I would suggest. Cam.
Yes. Indeed, and you know, Sonke Gender Justice is part of the coordinator of the Men Engaged network, and they have been doing a lot of this, positive fatherhood men caring projects, and indeed it's all about shifting beliefs, attitudes, and practices. But men's attitudes and practices cannot shift solely because we are only working with men individually. We have to make sure that there is a conducive environment and community for men to be involved in caregiving. You know, if we are going to a community in my country in caregiving, it's not enough. We have to make sure that the community are participating in this discussion, and also policymakers are creating conducive and positive programs and activity and policy so their men and women can shift their attitude and belief. So again, the experience has shown that to go to work with individual men at the community level about shifting their values and their belief and attitudes, do not want to talk to me for a year and positive fatherhood for 1 year. If outside that is so the norm, the men to be involved in caregiving. So we have to be engaging at different levels in terms of working with men and boys.
Okay, Cam, thanks very much. I think that this was the last question, so I guess we might finish the lecture here. Just a few things before all of you leave. Just reminding you that the record of this online lecture will be made available on the course website, but it will be made available under the section for week 4 probably, and not for week 5, because it was not a session on domestic employment. We will discuss domestic employment during the next session on global care chains, and it will also be made available on the online lectures blog. Just a reminder that regarding the assignment, you have most of them, but not all of you, selected your topic, your preferred topic for the assignment, and it has already been approved or not approved in some cases, except for those of you who have selected the topic after the due time. And during this week, I will answer today. And during this week, remember that you need to submit your outline, the outline of the assignment. It means you have to reflect a bit more on what you want to do, and you must submit it by November 29th, so by Saturday, next Saturday. And the next online lecture will be also with me on domestic employment and care chains. We will discuss about global care chains and whether they are so new or they are not such a new phenomenon. And we will discuss all that next Monday, 1st of December at the same time, 9 a.m. EST. And with this will be my last word. These are my last words. I don't know, Cam, do you want to tell us anything before leaving?
No, thank you so much. I'm sorry again, challenges this, and I really hope that everybody's issue we can get in the expertise on working with men and to prevent violence, caregiving, and positive fatherhood. But you know, we can explore together. And thank you everybody for your participation.
Okay, so yes, thank you everybody, and have a good week and a productive and reproductive week. So we meet in the forum, or we can write to each other, and hopefully we will meet here next week. So thanks to all of you, and bye.